What I'm going to be talking about this hour is electronic publishing. I'm the one giving this talk because I have a great deal of practical, hands-on experience with electronic publishing, probably as much and more than most authors, as much as any. There are a lot of myths about electronic publishing. The biggest is the myth that electronic publishing is on the verge of a breakthrough, and that any day now there's going to be an incredible tidal wave of ebooks that's going to sweep over the whole world, and paper books are going the way of the dodo and the passenger pigeon. The analogies drawn are the way that computers, word processing programs just swept aside typewriters, or the way that automobiles, made horses and buggies obsolete. This myth has the same tenacity, it seems, as the belief cherished by certain fanatical religious sects that the world is going to end next year. And the faithful gather every year to enjoy the fruits of the rapture or whatever they happen to think is going to happen to them. And year after year it doesn't happen. They never question the premises of their belief. Instead, they go back and re-examine the holy text and realize they didn't quite interpret some passage in Revelations properly. For the people who believe this myth about electronic publishing, the holy text is usually what's called the S-curve, which is a mathematical formula for how sales happen. And basically what it is sales start off slow, a new product, and then they take off like a rocket, and then they taper off again. Every successful new revolutionary innovative product goes through an S-curve development, and they leap to the conclusion that therefore every product is going to have an S-curve, which is a lapse in logic that's pretty major. Here's the truth. E-publishing is certainly growing, no question about it. But outside of a few specialty areas, it grows very slowly. There are some exceptions. There are some areas of publishing, what I'm calling specialty areas, where electronic publishing grows very rapidly, in some cases has already become dominant. Those areas always have one of three characteristics, sometimes more than one, but they will always have one of the three following characteristics. The first, and usually most important, is that there's a very large cost differential between the electronic and the paper edition. Classic example is encyclopedias. You can still buy a paper edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. It will cost you almost $1,400. Or you can subscribe annually to the Encyclopedia Britannica for $70. And you will get all the updates every year. For most people, that's an enormous cost differential, and it's worth it to just stick with the electronic version, even though most of them would probably rather have a paper edition. The second characteristic is that the subject matter is primarily referential. That is, it's not a book you're going to want to read from front to back. It's more a mass of data that you want to have access to so you can find some piece whenever you want it. For something like that, electronics works just fine. And since there's often a big cost differential as well, people will tend to prefer the electronic version. And the third characteristic is that the subject matter is ephemeral by nature. It's stuff that comes and goes. A lot of magazines, periodicals are shifting toward electronic publishing for that reason. Partly it's because you remember when I talked about the distributor's share, in magazines that's even higher than it is in books. It's typically 60-70%. So there's a big push on magazines and periodicals to shift to electronic publishing. But if it's a branch of publishing in which none of those characteristics is particularly important, then electronic publishing grows. It does. And it grows for reasons I'll explain in a minute. But it grows quite slowly. It's not quick. The two largest branches of publishing by far, the biggest is what's called popular nonfiction. And that is a huge heterogeneous category that includes everything from all manner of self-help books, including cookbooks, to popular histories, popular biographies, true crime stories, and so on and so forth. This has a mass popular audience, and it is very sluggish in terms of responding to electronic publishing. There's no particular advantage to electronic publishing. The second largest category is fiction, and it has exactly the same characteristics. Between them, those two branches of publishing, popular nonfiction and fiction, account for about close to 60% of all books.